Well, how are you guys? Doing well? Good, good. Well, I'm here today to promote a couple of things that I think are of great interest to you. One you see on the screens here that we're going to play you a little trailer of in just a second. I do want to let you know, though, about a tour that I'm leading to Plymouth, Boston. We'll include Lexington, Concord, all the key sites over there. That'll happen in November the 12th through the 16th. If you have any interest in going, see me. It's $800 a person, plus the air flight there and back, which is about $350 to $370. So it's a pretty cheap trip. We'll be there for 5 days. I'll give you a lot of history while we're there, a lot of Black Robe Regiment information. So if you're interested, see me, and I'd be happy to give you more information about it. Now, the reason why that is a good lead into this, a brand new movie that is coming out in just a few days is the movie that you see before you on the screen, Last Ounce of Courage. It is produced by Mr. Kevin McAfee. His movie is called Veritas Movie Company. He was the one who did the movie End of the Spear. If you saw that movie about Jim Elliott, he also did the documentary with Elizabeth Elliott entitled Beyond the Gates of Splendor. It's all about the mission effort that took place in South America. And Jim Elliott went there and was, of course, killed by those South American Indians. And then eventually, that tribe, many of the key members were won to the Lord. There's a great ministry going on down there now. Well, Kevin has a movie company, and I have recently become involved with Kevin at a number of levels. One, I'm trying to help him to promote the premiere of this movie that I'll tell you something about in just a second. But he is also working with me promoting the Black Robe Regiment message. Some of you know that I've been writing a book on those guys that is just about complete. He's going to help me with trying to get that book published. But he's also working with me at doing some filming, because there's the possibility that we could do a full-blown Hollywood-type docudrama on the Black Robe Regiment, which I think would be incredible that we get that message out. But he is even looking at the possibility, now this would take probably somewhere around 3 to 4 years from conception to the actual movie, of maybe making a full-length motion picture about the Black Robe Regiment, which I think would just be phenomenal, because that is a piece of our American history that has been lost. But if we can revive that history, at least among Christians, you can just imagine the difference that that could make in our country. So, in getting involved with Kevin, we've already done some filming. In fact, we filmed about a 15-minute documentary over at the old church at Fort Reno a couple of weeks ago in full period costume. We had an audience in the congregation, and I did the Muhlenberg speech, which was his final sermon at his church in Woodstock, Virginia, and it really turned out great. And so in the coming months, you'll have the opportunity to see that footage, and I think it's the beginning of some really great things. I would appreciate your prayers in that light, that you just pray about that project. If God wants it to happen, that it'll happen. And whatever He wants, that's what we want. And what He doesn't want, we don't want. So that's our prayer. Now, that brings me then to Last Ounce of Courage. You know, we are constantly complaining about Hollywood and about the degradation of morals in America, primarily through television and movies, right? And we all are frustrated, and we're often cursing the darkness, but very seldom do we make the effort to light a candle. Well, Veritas Movie Company is doing just that, in that they are lighting a candle. They are making movies, Hollywood quality movies with Hollywood stars. And they're making movies that are about America, about character, about all the things that matter. This new movie, Last Ounce of Courage, will premiere on September the 14th. It's going to be at about 1,500 major theaters across America. It will be here in Oklahoma City. I have a few brochures that we can make available to some of you, and at the very bottom there is a website that you can go to, and you can find the listings of the theaters in this area that will be showing this movie. Now, if you can remember it, it's simply lastouncethemovie.com. Lastouncethemovie.com, in case you do not get one of these flyers. And you can go on there and find out where the movie is going to be showing. Now, I think most of you understand that theater owners determine how long they're going to run a movie in their theater based upon the response the first 2 or 3 days that it's in their theater. So it is imperative to the conservative and Christian community, not only here in Oklahoma City, but all over the country, to patronize this movie the first day or two that it's in the theaters, so that they will run it for a longer period of time and give more people the opportunity to see it. I had the opportunity to watch this movie last week in Kevin's own home. He screened it for us. It is an incredible story. In fact, it is based on a true story. Now, you know, when you make a movie like this, you have to add things to it to create dialogue and all that. But many of the things in the movie, many of the elements are actual events that took place. But this movie is about standing up for our rights. It basically revolves around the life of a mayor in a small town in America who is being pressured not to put up Christmas decorations in his town, and for years he has knuckled under. And finally, through a number of events, one of them is the death of his son overseas in the military, and all the story that revolves around that, he decides that he's going to take a stand, and when he does, of course, he ignites a fire, and it's a tremendous story, very inspirational. In fact, I sat there in Kevin's house toward the end of it crying. I mean, it's a very moving movie, and it's very, very well done. You're going to recognize some Hollywood personalities when you see the movie, so they're using top-notch actors and actresses.
He would like to take a moment at this point in time and discuss the whole accountability committee, the accountability effort within OCPAC, just for a few minutes before our future next sheriff steps up. All right. The accountability is kind of a touchy area because it's designed to hold people accountable, which is very unfriendly to all of us in a way. We all know we need accountability, but it hurts at times, doesn't it? And it's the same way we deal with our elected officials. OCPAC traditionally has taken all of its funds that it has raised and donated it towards campaigns. Given it to the campaign manager of that campaign to spend as they see fit to get elected. All right? And of course they're endorsed here by OCPAC and so on. Well, this last year there was a change. 10% of OCPAC's funds go towards accountability at this point. They're set aside to different account, well not a different account, but for this purpose. And they get spent as determined by the accountability committee. Basically, we approach the elected officials. Now, I'm the chair of that committee, so I'm going to speak to this. We approach our elected officials about votes that are coming up and the races they're going to enter. And how can I put this? If you were to look at the conservative index in the Oklahoma Constitution, thank you very much, by the way. We work with the bottom dwellers. I don't know how else to put it. All right. Shall I be polite? If the score is a 63 or above, pretty low score in my opinion, but a 63 or above, they're actually safe. Those folks, they don't really see much of me. They don't hear much from me. All right? On the other hand, when the score is a 62 or below, I get a visit, or they get a visit from me once in a while, and we discuss coming legislation and encourage them how to vote. And sometimes we reach out to their constituents because there's one thing they've learned all elected officials deal with. They want to get reelected to the miserable jobs. Representative Darrell, I don't know why you want it. I'm glad somebody wants it. But the reality is, they look to get reelected, and it's their voters they're concerned about. Sometimes we reach out, primarily through robocalls, mail pieces, and we have that influence, we have that impact. Now, does it work? Yes. Yes. We actually have a track record of moving votes, and it does work. Allow me to give you an example. I want you to hear what some of them sound like.
Do you want to stop Obamacare from coming to Oklahoma?
Yes.
Right now, your state senator, Mike Schultz, has a bill that, if passed, would be the first step to implementing Obamacare in Oklahoma. By pressing 1 anytime during this message, you will be connected to Senator Schultz's office, It's a free call. Ask him to stop Obamacare by dropping Senate Bill 999. Press 1 to connect to Senator Schultz right now, or call his office at 405-521-5612. Message by Oklahoma Conservative PAC, 405-225-8286.
You know the problem with that audio message? It was a Yankee talking to a bunch of voters. It didn't work. It didn't work. So we found an Okie. Just one? Let's see if this one will work.
Oklahoma needs conservatives in office, not liberal Republicans like State Representative Tommy Hardin, who voted for hidden tax increases and more debt. Would he even vote for Obamacare in Oklahoma? Please run against him in the coming Republican primary. Hardin's voting record is horrible. After using the road fund to pay for liberal programs, Hardin actually had the nerve to vote to replenish that very same fund by going into debt. Why didn't he just say he wanted us to go into debt for liberal programs instead of hiding behind accounting tricks? Please run against him in the coming Republican primary for your state House of Representatives seat. Message by Oklahoma Conservative PAC, 405-225-8286.
Woo! Good job,
Stephanie, the voice of OCPAC. Just so you know, Hardin's opponent during the primary received that call. He called back. And I got his voicemail, spoke to him. He was looking for advice on what to do to run. Now, we interviewed him. He wasn't any better than Hardin. But still, think of the impact. That call to 1,000 people in that district cost $50. That's what it cost us. Do you know what it cost Tommy Hardin? Isn't that beautiful? No, it didn't cost him his job. But he had an opponent during the primary. All right, he just didn't walk right in. He had an opponent during the primary. That is the power of influence. Now, our representatives, they talk to each other, don't they? Oh, okay, all right, yeah. He'll have a few buddies I'm sure he complained to. But the whole idea is that kind of accountability, letting folks know that are the bottom dwellers in the index, that there is some influence here with just a few dollars, and they don't like that. They don't want that. Then of course there's the famous one.
Oklahoma needs conservatives in office, not liberal Republicans like State Representative Guy Liebman. Liebman votes with the liberals almost 40% of the time. Liebman has voted to increase the state debt, support hidden tax increases, and corporate welfare. On Tuesday, June 26, please don't vote for Guy Liebman. Anyone but Liebman. Message by Oklahoma Conservative PAC, 405-225-8286.
Anybody but Liebman. His name is Mike Turner.
All right. Let me explain a few of the boundaries, because I want you to realize, I want you to feel comfortable with the accountability process. First off, we don't get into who's sleeping with who politics. That's not what these messages are about. We don't put them out. You heard 3 of them. We stayed with their voting record. All right, keep that in mind. They have to be below that certain level on the index. Okay, what that was meant to do is encourage existing representatives to be mindful of the index and what we're sensitive to. Because I don't care what their motive is or why they got elected in office in a way. If it's their votes that count. And if they keep them above that level, and they'll focus on what's important to us, and they'll think about it, they'll weigh their votes before they go against what this organization wants. Okay? There's that little bit of influence. I'll give you one more example. Remember the Constitutional Convention?
I wasn't alive back then.
Senator Russell put out a call for a Constitutional Convention and had a bill for it. Now what he did is it did not run through the traditional committee process. He took another bill and on the floor of the Senate, okay, he amended the bill, and he went through the procedural process of this. But he took an existing bill and he gutted it, and he put in the call for a Constitutional Convention, and then the Senate on the floor voted on it on the spot. Now the advantage of doing that is so that folks like you and I aren't even aware of it. It just hits. We have no chance to rally our troops and our efforts to try to oppose it. We're not even aware of it. That went over to the House side. Now it's in its normal process and flow, and it goes to a committee that's represented by Representative Jordan. All right, he was the chair of that committee. At that point in time, now it's on the calendar, we become aware of it. Do you know how we become aware of it? By a gentleman in Maine. Getting a hold of Clark Curry. And then Clark sends that word out. He tells you we have holes in our own processes within the state. But still, we're going to work on plugging that information flow. But when word got out, Senator Russell did come down here at one point. And he gave that presentation about the Constitutional Convention. It's very much as it would sound. I didn't appreciate what he had to say. I didn't agree with him. When the OCPAC was over, I went down to the state capitol, found Representative Jordan, and we had a good conversation. It was a friendly conversation. Called him out of the chamber. He came out to the lobby, and we spoke for a moment. And I asked him to not allow this bill to be heard for a Constitutional Convention. And he hemmed and hawed, and basically said, sir, you understand, I need to know that you're not going to hear this. Otherwise, I don't want to do this, but this is so important. It's so utterly important that we do not have a call for a Constitutional Convention. I'll be forced to robocall the constituents of the members of your committee and their districts. Okay? To say vote against this when it comes up for a vote in committee. Do you think Representative Jordan wanted to hear that? Do you think he wanted to hear word get out that these guys are all getting robocalled and he actually could have prevented it? I don't think so. You see, he didn't like that at all. At that point, the nature of our conversation changed. And he began to work with me. And he never heard the bill. The Constitutional Convention died right there. That's the power of accountability, informing constituents on key legislation of what's going on. You know that conversation? It didn't cost us a dime. That was beautiful. There was not a single robocall that went out. But we were prepared to, because the funds were there. No sleeping with poo politics. We stay with the issues. We deal with the issue with a score, and we're above board on that. We had this piece that went out for Guy Lehman. Peace be upon him. Does he find a new job yet? Okay. Okay. This had an influence on his race. Now, this one piece alone in the robocall we sent out on his district would not be enough to win the race. All right, it wouldn't be enough. But it has its influence. It has its weight. And I'm sure that our new representative, Mike Turner, all right, was very appreciative of it. I know he was. All right, I actually do know he was. The accountability does work. I have two requests. Number one, please feel comfortable with it. Donate to the accountability fund. Okay? It takes money. It takes money. But you know, $50 to 1,000 constituents, primary voters, it carries a lot of weight because they start talking. Oh, there's one more thing we don't do. On the we don't really get as sensational as I've been encouraged to get on these messages. Okay, try to keep a little bit of a more sensible posture. It turns out robocalls work better when you run around and, like you're running naked through the woods with your hair on fire. You get a lot more attention. It's about, I've noticed based on the stats, it's about a 50% increase in the response. I'd rather spend the extra $25 to reach 50% more people and get the same response than just take the whole messaging and really drop it down the toilet, if you know what I mean. Try to maintain some kind of a posture there that's reasonable. So please feel comfortable with it, support it. And one more thing on it, we need another committee member. With Richard Ingalls stepping aside, we need another volunteer. We need 3 people on this committee. So we're looking for one more. Right now it's Stephanie West and myself. And we need one more, and I appreciate you approaching me afterwards. Yes?
I have a question. Were the members of OPAC ever polled to see how many of us were against the CONCON and how many were for it?
The difficulty with this kind of accountability is that it's very fast. A bill can come up and a moment's notice, you have to respond to it. So the answer is, because of that, because of the need for a quick response, the answer is no. Well, that's why we need 3 people on the committee, because all 3 people have to agree to the activities. And they're meant to be a representation of OPAC. We have fast conference calls, we deal with the topics at hand, we agree, and then we move forward. That's actually how we have internally our own accountability mechanism.
I see a little problem with 3 people representing 200.
Maybe you ought to join the committee.
Was there not a vote on
Right.
that? When he gave the debate to Charlie, I thought we should vote after that.
I don't recall there being a vote, was it?
It's not part of our bylaws.
Right, it's not something we would vote on. But the accountability mechanism, trying to stay within the spirit of OPAC, is through the idea of 3 members actually participating. Steve?
Would not the default position to be to oppose something like that unless membership affirmatively said we want to do this then? So would you not have acted correctly there, even if there was no vote? That's kind of a big thing we would need to vote. I'm saying the default position would be against something like that, unless the membership voted we want to push something like that. Am I correct? That's why we need that position.
Does that mean against the CONCON or against accountability?
No, against the CONCON. Against that, in other words, for this group to be okay with something like that, that would be something that we would vote for. Otherwise, we're going to oppose something like that because of the extreme danger of something like that. That's what I was getting at.
Because you might end up flushing the Constitution if we all want to support.
Right.
Well, that's a fair question to ask and a fair discussion to have. And maybe there should be a slate we essentially vote on. But keep in mind, the reason of the accountability committee is because you don't know what's going to come up.
Right.
And you don't know how it's going to be presented. And the response has to be fast. Is everything during the legislative cycle. Okay, and that's where even 3 people has had its moments of being cumbersome. So to wait for the next meeting or so on, it becomes a little difficult. Maybe we need to think that through a little more then. Maybe there is a place for the idea of a slate. But again, it's tough. It's tough. All right, we need to pass it.
Well, even though you stopped it at that point in time, at least that then put it in position to where if they wanted to bring it up again, it would have to be done openly. And so, I mean, it doesn't mean that he just completely said, okay, we're not going to let it happen, but on the basis of nobody knowing what's going on, that was the positive of the whole thing.
Yes, the gamesmanship that can occur at the House.
Because they may try to bring it up again, but at least this time they're not going to do it behind closed doors. Or they'll think twice before they do. So that's it.
All right, we're going to move on now into the Oklahoma County Sheriff's race. All right, Darrell Sorrels is the only candidate on the Republican ticket running for sheriff. He had no primary, right? I should tell you, this race is very important to me. The reason is because our local municipalities, and their law enforcement agencies, whether they be the local police or the local county sheriff's department, need to remain local. and they are being slowly bought out. A greater percentage of their budget, as I understand it, from my questions I've been asking to look at it, greater and greater percentage is slowly increasing where they're getting aid from other sources, such as the federal government. At that point, their attention is no longer focused on keeping the mayor and the city council happy, but keeping the federal government happy. And that's actually not good. We need local, independent law enforcement agencies within that spirit. I personally am endorsing Darrell Sorrels for sheriff. Now, he's got his issues he's running on, but I just gave him one. And I'm hoping you'll support him as well. Darrell?
It's been about 3 months since I've been here, working full-time, campaigning full-time, getting a little bit of gray hair. But the gray hair is not from the stress of working and campaigning, it's the 10 grandchildren I have. What I am getting with stress is this little cowlick right here that I cannot get rid of. And I was going to ask for some bushwhacks from some of you guys. Who remember the bushwhacks? Some of you do, because I can tell you used a little bit too much.
Some of them like that.
That's right. I used to own a lot of cows, so anyway, we do need a conservative sheriff in Oklahoma County. We have a lot of issues from the federal government, such as NDAA, Agenda 21, that a sheriff can protect his citizens in his county against the federal government. And you're right. The current sheriff takes a lot of federal grants from the federal government. A lot of grants, because I retired from there in 2007, and I was over traffic safety, and I had to manage a grant that was from the federal government. If you think federal money is free, it's not. Because what they require you to do is build upon that. So when you take a federal grant, you're taking money from your taxpayers. And then you have to build upon that, so you take more money from your taxpayers. And there's a lot of issues going on with the county sheriff's office today. One of them is the biggest issue that's draining Oklahoma County government is the Oklahoma County jail. The Department of Justice came in and did an inspection on the Oklahoma County jail, and they list over 60 deficiencies. Now, we were at, the current sheriff and myself were at the FOP, Oklahoma City FOP, trying to get their support, which he did not gain their support. 16 years, he did not gain the FOP support. When we got up there to speak, he said that all of the deficiencies assessed from the Department of Justice had been remedied. And I beg to differ with him on that. Out of the deficiencies, probably 5 or 6 were structural. So it's not the structure of the county jail. It was management problems. And they have not been corrected. So what we have to do is go in there and manage that jail. And we can do it. And it's not going to take very much money to fix the structural part. Not when you go in and you streamline the sheriff's office, which needs to be streamlined. We have a bunch, let's see, the spending of the sheriff's office is probably tripled or if not quadrupled since the sheriff took office in 2000, no, it was 1998. 98 is when he took office, 16 years. The employees, when he took office, there was a total of 400. Now there's 800. But it's a revolving door. They come in, you train them, you spend a lot of money training the employees, and they see what's going on, and they leave. So it's a revolving door there. So you're spending money on training employees. And so what you have to do is you have to streamline the jail. We're top heavy at the county jail, and streamline it, and you take all the money that's spent up here, and you move it down here for the employees. There again, there's a lot of equipment. Oklahoma County Sheriff's Office has more equipment and vehicles than most law enforcement agencies in Oklahoma. So what you do is when I take office, I'm going to go in and have an auction. You get rid of those non-essential vehicles or equipment, and you put that money back in jail. When the Department of Justice came in to the county jail and gave all those deficiencies, they pulled out all the federal inmates. Well, they're not inmates, they're detainees. They're detainees. What they do is the federal government brings in their detainees and they hold them there at the county jail until they go to court. And once they go to court, they come back out and then they go someplace else. Now we house state inmates at the county jail. And they pay a lot less money than what the federal government did. So in order to make up for that cost that he lost, which is a sum of probably $3.5 million a year, which you could use for that jail, it wasn't being used to fix the jail. So you have to make up for that loss. So he adds more inmates, which causes more problems, overcrowding. And also the court system. We need to speed up the court system. We need to encourage the judges, the DA's office to speed up the court system. Quit postponing, because when you do that, it backs up the court system and it backs up the movement of the inmates. So what we're going to do, and what we're planning on doing is send the state inmates back to the state. We're going to remodel the jail. We're going to, with the money that we streamline the administration and the jail operation, we're going to put it back in to the county jail to hire qualified and pay them a good salary, qualified personnel. Now we've heard during the FOP meeting, we've heard concerns from Oklahoma City officers that they go to drug houses, that they make arrests, and they find out that some of the people that they arrest out of there are employees of the county jail. And these are the employees that are bringing in drugs, contraband, into the county. So the sheriff said, the current sheriff said, well, I have a sharp opinion. Well, he knew this was going on in the first place. So he should have had a sharp opinion a long time ago before the issue came up before. So that's one of the other issues we have. So we need to have a conservative sheriff that's going to be accountable and transparent in everything he does. And you're right. Everybody is held accountable and should be held accountable by other elected officials in county government. But they're not. It's the good old boy program. They watch out for each other. So I'm up here supporting Charles Key for court clerk. It's going to take more than one man to stand to get things changed. Charles is a conservative individual that will go in there and be fair, and we will hold each other accountable, and we will hold the other elected officials accountable. So, right now I can take some questions. I do better when we're conversing back and forth, so if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Is the accountable committee going to do anything to get the word out about some of the things the sheriff's doing, or hasn't done, or what?
No.
When are you going to start?
You know this last primary? The accountability fund is broke. Any donors?
I'll be a donor. Well, if you listen to the news,
How much you need?
if you listen to the news.
We'll get there.
We'll get there.
In the last couple of weeks, you'd see what kind of corruption is going on in the county jail. And we'll get with you in a minute. There was some information that came out that were using inmates for slave labor. And of course, the sheriff was on TV, and probably most of you have watched this in the news. He sat there and he said he didn't know anything about it. Well, the information that came out, and there's a person out there that we have to protect that brought this information out and brought the pictures out that they don't know about, and they don't know what we know. So I can tell you now that I know that the sheriff, he lied on television to the public. And those are strong words, lying on television. But he was deceitful. And if anybody in this county would like to have a sheriff that is deceitful, there's something wrong. You need somebody that's transparent, that's honest, that's humble, and doesn't throw his employees under the bus. All right, somebody else has a question.
I have a kind of a general question, not specifically about what's going on right now. You mentioned NDAA and 1021, those kind of things where the federal government can try to come in and force certain rules and regulations on the people that don't really want to accept it. How much authority does a sheriff have to stand up against that kind of thing? I read a little bit about like New Mexico and Sheriff O'Leary does some things. I'm ignorant about that. I haven't read the state of that. Do you have any general knowledge about that?
Sure. The county sheriff in his county has the Constitution. And if anything goes against the Constitution when it comes to law enforcement, the sheriff in his county has more power than the president. He has more power than the president in his county. So you need a constitutional sheriff that's going to stand and protect the citizens.
You got a good advisor.
And disobey any order that is against the Constitution of the United States.
He asked my question.
Okay.
On the situation with the sheriff apologizing on this, making his signs in the jail, and basically denied having any knowledge. I understand that our district attorney in Oklahoma County, David Prater, offered to set up an ethics class for his command staff. And perhaps unbeknownst to our district attorney, approximately 3 to 3.5 years ago, we had a county sheriff in the state of Oklahoma with some serious legal issues. And at that time, Sheriff Wetzel hired, with taxpayer dollars, a gentleman from out of state to travel to Oklahoma County to teach ethics. And he also invited staff members or sheriffs, whatever, throughout the state, offering them an opportunity to attend this ethics class. So they've already been trained at taxpayers' expense. And now this may be a joke or whatever, but I have heard that there were several people incarcerated who had written letters to their attorneys asking if they could determine what the fees were. They'd like to attend this ethics class and apologize if that would buy them a release from their institution.
Well, I can guarantee you that Oklahoma County, when they teach an academy, they teach an ethics class. And guess who teaches it? Sure. And I was told that this ethics class is probably about 15 minutes long. So, Jerome.
Darrell, I heard Sheriff Wetzel one time make mention that he was the chairman of something above my pay grade, but he was the chairman of the International Police Officers Association, or the International Council of Sheriffs Association. And I have read and studied that the United Nations is wanting to abolish the sheriff's positions all over America to justify the Gestapo. That's the long and the short. So can you elaborate? I don't know what he belonged to. Is it an NGO of the United Nations, this thing he belonged to? He was the chairman of or something?
International Chiefs of Police.
International Chiefs of Police, and he was the president. And guess what the International Chiefs of Police are trying to do, and that's gun control. So, gun control.
Didn't he help to pass the Brady Bill? I want to say he was he was president of that organization at the time that they helped to push through the Brady Bill.
You know, I'm not aware of that.
I think
he
it
was
was.
part of it at that time.
Sheriff Wetzel stood on the stage of the U.S. Capitol and made a statement that, in his opinion, citizens of the United States did not have the right, did not need to own or possess firearms.
Well, let me tell you this. That's why this country is free. It's because the Second Amendment, it keeps us free. And that's why the government is and the government knows the sheriff's responsibility, and that's what they're afraid of also. Because right now, Sheriff Richard Mack has a constitutional Sheriff's Peace Officers Association. Meets in September in Las Vegas. And there's a lot of sheriffs that were unaware of their responsibilities. And then when we come in, of course, I'm not a member of it yet. Or am I, John? Okay. Now, I was going to wait until I became sheriff so I'd have a little bit more teeth into this. Because that's better to be Oklahoma Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association is just a puppet to whoever's in power, which current sheriff has a lot of say-so in that organization. So what I was going to do is join it, and then we were going to educate 77 sheriffs in Oklahoma about their responsibility as constitutional sheriffs.
What do you need to get to that deal out there, the constitutional sheriff's meeting?
Yes, I wish I could.
Do you have to be a sheriff to go, or can you go?
I could probably go, but my whole deal is during this campaign season, my responsibility is to get into office. And then once I get into office, it would be a great time to start spreading the news.
Okay, one last question, Pastor Kirk.
What is your feeling about the sheriff of Maricopa County in Phoenix? Do you think that his strategy and things is workable in Oklahoma?
Joe
Arpaio.
Yes, I think he's a man that stands firm, and that's what we need.
Pink underwear at all?
Why not? I wear it. No. Thank you.
You got a website?
Yes.
Which is?
www.sorrelsforsheriff.com.
It's got a big out thing on it too, doesn't it?
It does. There's a video on there that I looked at this morning, and I said, I didn't have that Cadillac when I first started. That video came out when I first started. That's what I wanted to do.
Yesterday I got a call. I got a call from a reporter from the Oklahoma Gazette.
Oh, wow.
The Oklahoma Gazette. All right, that's fine. I should say it with Charlie's accent. They were looking at the Southern Poverty Law Center's website, and they were interested in organizations out there that had some representation. They were on their website as a patriot group, right? Patriot group. And you take a look at their description of a patriot group, it's a pretty left-handed compliment. All right? You know what they're actually getting at. Now, they called me because they found that I was associated with the John Birch Society, and they wanted some information because they were preparing an article. I believe it's for next week. Let me ask you something. Southern Poverty Law Center. They publish that stuff, and they encourage that on our sheriff's departments. And they have people listening there, like OK Safe, with Grandma Amanda Teagarden, okay, as a threat. Do we need a sheriff who has the wisdom to see through that and to realize that Grandma Amanda Teagarden just means well? She's a concerned citizen who loves this country and who will fight to defend this country in every way she can. That little lady runs around our state capitol. God bless her soul for what she does. Windsor Hills Baptist Church is listed.
Windsor Hills?
They're on their website. Fairview, I guess, didn't quite make it. Sorry about that,
man.
Can you imagine that?
Wow.
If y'all want to drop the
We
dress
need to
code, you
be
can
packing
make it
better.
Windsor Hills Baptist Church, though, what they do is they recognize the work of our local law enforcement. They invite them to church once a year, and they give them awards for recognition for what they do. You see, but still, you got to understand, that's who's on this website, and that is who that organization is. That's the list that that organization is feeding our LEAs, local law enforcement. We need to have a sheriff who can see through that. And it's one of those reasons why I'm helping to support Darrell Sorrels. And I'd like to challenge everybody here. If you'll stand up and commit right now to a donation to his campaign, I'll match your donation dollar for dollar up to $1,000. Right here on the spot, who's with me? All right, can I get amounts? Just state how much you're going to donate.
5.
20. 5.
Is that $500 or $5?
500.
20,000 or $20?
All on the
Susan?
50.
I just said $200 last week because I counted.
Outstanding.
Way to go, Kathy.
All right. Yes? Beautiful. 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 All right. It sounds like we're there. Darrell, you just look like...
I'll make it 1,000 if I can get out of jail card.
That kind of sheriff is not somebody I would support.
Do we get to pick the jail too?
Thank you very much. It's hard for me to ask for money. Thank you for doing that for me. But what I can ask for, and it's easy for me to do, is ask for your prayers. So.
And places for signs.
And I really need those. And if you need
Places for signs.
Do you have signs today?
Yes, I do. They're in my car. I haven't put them together yet. I was going to take them to the.
You got some inmates can do that for you?
That's a good one.
We'll be your inmates.
All right, I'm not bashful. I'll ask for his prayers too. And your money. All right? No doubt about it. And your money. Please go to his website, www.darrellsorrels
Sorrels for sheriff.
sorrelsforsheriff.com.
Spell Sorrels.
SORRELS.
Thank you.
At the same time, Darrell, could you use some volunteers? Could you use some volunteers to help out your campaign?
Yes.
By all means, please, again, go to the website. There is a way to volunteer. We're right into the season now when it matters. A couple months before the general election. That's what this is. Please help this gentleman out. I'm asking you to please help. At this point, Mike, did you have something?
Yeah, just one thing. God bless Darrell. But the other thing is, if there's anybody in the room that doesn't know who the Southern Poverty Law Center is and what they're all about, I'm sure most of you do know, but the John Birch Society has like a 45-minute DVD on those people, exposing them for what they are. And the big problem is how they are influencing our police departments, sheriff's departments, all over the country. And they are far, they supposedly identify hate groups and all that. Well, they are far from objective on that, and they are nothing really more than just a left-wing scam making millions and millions of dollars.
You mean a hate group?
Yeah, you might label it as that. But at any rate, we have those DVDs, and for $1 you can learn all about that, but that's all.
All right, that concludes our business. Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing everybody next week.